The night has a way of softening everything. Edges blur, thoughts slow, and the world becomes quieter, as if inviting you to drift between waking and dreaming. In that gentle space, curiosity feels safer, and mysteries feel less like puzzles to solve and more like stories to be experienced. As you settle in, allow your mind to loosen its grip on the day, because this journey begins softly, like a whisper carried across a vast, star-filled sky. And in that sky, stretching endlessly above us, lies one of humanity's oldest fascinations, the question of who else might be out there. For thousands of years, people have looked upward and wondered about the faint lights that the heavens. Ancient civilizations carved stories into stone, not only about gods and spirits, but about visitors, beings who descended from the stars to teach, to observe, or simply to watch from a distance. While none of those early descriptions perfectly match the modern understanding of what we call the grays, they reveal something important. Humans have always sensed they are not alone. Across continents and centuries, symbols of large-eyed watchers, pale figures, or silent observers appear with surprising consistency. These echoes form the earliest threads of a tapestry that continues even today. As centuries passed and humanity grew more scientific, the sky became not just a place of myth, but a place of potential. Telescopes expanded our vision, revealing planets, moons, and galaxies that sparked an entirely new kind of wonder. By the 20th century, the idea of extraterrestrial life shifted from folklore to hypothesis. Scientists debated the probability of intelligent civilizations, while writers and artists filled pages with imaginative encounters. It was during this evolution that the image of the Greys began its quiet ascent. Smooth-skinned, emotionless, and eerily calm, they emerged as a figure that felt both familiar and unknown, a blend of dream imagery, psychological archetype, and the expanding possibilities of science. Today, the Greys stand as the most widely recognized form associated with alien encounters. Whether in films, documentaries, or whispered conversations, their appearance seems universal. Large oval eyes, elongated skulls, slight bodies, and a presence that feels neither threatening nor comforting, but something in between. People describe them not with terror, but with a strange mixture of awe and quiet unease. It is this balance, their ability to evoke curiosity and caution simultaneously, that makes their story so compelling for a peaceful, nighttime exploration like this. They do not roar, chase, or frighten in any conventional way. Instead, they observe. They appear in silence. They seem to exist in the same calm that nighttime itself creates. This calmness is part of why the subject of the Greys is uniquely suited to a sleep story. Their mystery doesn't demand loud reactions or dramatic conclusions. Instead, it invites reflection. Why do so many people describe them similarly? Why does their presence feel almost meditative to some, as though they arrive not to harm, but to study or communicate? Researchers, psychologists, and historians often note that the Greys occupy a special place in modern mythology. They are symbols of the unknown, but also of possibility. Representations of intelligence beyond human understanding. As you listen, you may notice that thinking about them creates a gentle kind of curiosity, one that lingers without urgency. The goal is not to convince, frighten, or challenge, but to guide you through a landscape of ideas shaped by decades of reports, stories, and cultural fascination. The Greys have become a bridge between scientific speculation and human imagination. They sit at the intersection of what we know, what we think we know, and what we quietly wonder as we look up at the moonlit sky. And so, this journey begins not with certainty, but with openness, with the soft awareness that the universe is vast, that mysteries remain, and that exploring them can be calming rather than unsettling. As the night deepens around you, allow the story to unfold gently, like drifting through a quiet dream. Whatever the truth behind the Greys may be, their mystery has become part of our shared human story, woven into decades of sightings, experiences, and cultural reflections. Tonight, we explore that mystery slowly and peacefully, letting the questions rest lightly in the mind, like stardust settling on an undisturbed surface. Before the Greys became the most recognizable figures in modern UFO lore, their roots stretch back through centuries of human symbolism, myth, and imagination. While their current form, slender bodies, pale skin, oversized heads, and dark, almond-shaped eyes, feels distinctly modern, the underlying archetype has existed far longer than most people realize. Across cultures, stories have circulated about silent watchers, pale spirits, or nocturnal visitors who appear during moments of transition, between sleep and wakefulness, between night and dawn, between ordinary life and unexplained experience. These ancient narratives offer early hints of the same emotions the Greys evoke today: mystery, curiosity, and the subtle sense of being observed by something beyond human understanding. Anthropologists often point to recurring figures in world mythology that resemble the emotional imprint of the Greys, if not their exact appearance. In some Native American traditions, there are moon-faced beings associated with dreams and nighttime journeys. In parts of Asia, ancient folklore describes small, thin, humanoid figures who watch silently from the edges of forests or mountains, often appearing without footsteps or spoken language. Even European legends include stories of pale visitors who arrive during the night, conduct examinations or teachings, and leave without explanation. These tales were never labeled extraterrestrial by the cultures that told them, but they highlight a timeless human tendency. When people cannot explain the presence they feel, they give it shape based on symbols available to them. It wasn't until the late 19th and early 20th century that those symbols began shifting into something closer to the modern Grey. The rise of early science fiction played an influential role. Writers like H.G. Wells imagined beings from other worlds with exaggerated intelligence and frail bodies, a natural evolution of speculative science, based on the idea that advanced civilizations might develop large brains and diminished physical strength. In Wells' 1893 essay The Man of the Year Million, he described future humans as pale, hairless, with enlarged heads and large eyes, a description that eerily mirrors today's depiction of the Greys. His works weren't intended to predict aliens, yet they helped crystallize an image of what superior intelligence might look like, especially to readers who were just beginning to grasp evolution, biology, and the vastness of the cosmos. As pulp magazines and early radio dramas gained popularity in the 1920s and 1930s, illustrations of extraterrestrials became more common. Artists frequently portrayed them as humanoid but exaggerated, often with thin limbs and oversized craniums. These images weren't based on eyewitness accounts. They were imaginative attempts to convey otherworldliness. But they seeded the subconscious of millions of people, creating a visual vocabulary that would later influence how actual encounters were interpreted. Researchers have long debated whether these images shaped people's experiences or whether they merely provided language for describing something already being witnessed. The truth may be somewhere in between. Psychologists studying archetypal imagery note that the Greys' appearance fits patterns that show up repeatedly in dreams and altered states. Large eyes evoke both vulnerability and power, allowing the viewer to project intention, gentle or unsettling, onto the figure. The smooth, expressionless face creates emotional ambiguity, making the being feel both familiar and distant. Some theorists argue that such forms tap into deeply rooted instincts developed during early human evolution, our ability to detect faces in the dark, to interpret watchers or predators, and to sense gaze even when we cannot see it. This might explain why so many people, across different cultures and time periods, report similar beings despite having no exposure to media or each other's stories. Yet cultural influence cannot be dismissed. As the 20th century progressed, artists, filmmakers, and writers continued to refine the look of extraterrestrial beings. Early illustrations varied widely, but by the time the 1940s and 1950s arrived, a more consistent image began to take shape: thin, pale humanoids with minimalist facial features. Some historians believe this visual convergence was driven by collective anxiety about rapid technological advancement. The Greys may have emerged as symbols of scientific curiosity unbound by emotion, reflecting hopes and fears about where humanity might be heading. By the mid-20th century, the Greys had quietly become the dominant extraterrestrial archetype, even before the major abduction cases solidified their place in the cultural imagination. What makes this remarkable is that the evolution happened gradually, almost organically, as though the human mind was always shaping and reshaping these figures in response to changing times. They became vessels for interpretation, blank, calm, and mysterious, capable of absorbing whatever meaning people projected onto them. And so, the Greys we recognize today are not suddenly born beings, but the culmination of centuries of mythic symbolism, evolving psychology, and cultural storytelling. Their form reflects both ancient subconscious patterns and modern scientific speculation. In this way, they serve as a bridge between history and possibility, anchored in deep human memory, while also reaching toward the unknown spaces of the cosmos. In the years following World War II, the world found itself standing at the edge of a new and uncertain age. Nations were rebuilding, technologies were advancing at unprecedented speed, and the sky, which had once been a symbol of wonder, became a stage for military experiments, rocket tests, and surveillance. In this climate of rapid change, people began to look upward with a mixture of hope and apprehension. It was during this period, particularly in the late 1940s, that the phenomenon we now associate with UFOs surged dramatically into public awareness. Reports of strange lights, unconventional aircraft, and unexplained aerial maneuvers began to surface from civilians, pilots, and even military personnel. These early sightings set the tone for what would become one of the most enduring mysteries of the modern era. The most famous early spark came in 1947, when pilot Kenneth Arnold reported a formation of 9 fast-moving objects near Mount Rainier. His description, craft moving like saucers skipping on water, was transformed by the media into the now legendary phrase flying saucer. Although Arnold never claimed the objects were disc-shaped, the idea took hold instantly, reshaping public imagination. Newspapers ran the story nationwide, and within weeks, hundreds of similar reports began pouring in. Some sightings described discs, others silver ovals or dart-like shapes, but many shared an eerie theme: controlled movement. These objects didn't behave like meteors, balloons, or conventional aircraft. They accelerated abruptly, performed impossible turns, or hovered silently in place. The skies were suddenly alive with mystery. The government took notice quickly. Behind closed doors, military officials launched secret investigations, though publicly they downplayed the phenomenon. This dual approach, quiet curiosity mixed with official denial, became a pattern that would last for decades. Projects like Sign, Grudge, and eventually the more well-known Project Blue Book sought to catalog sightings and determine whether they posed a threat. Most reports were explained away as misidentified aircraft, weather phenomena, or psychological misperceptions. Yet a small percentage remained stubbornly unexplained, and these cases often came from trained observers, such as pilots or radar operators. Within those minority cases, descriptions began to show an intriguing consistency. Objects seemed intelligently controlled and technologically advanced beyond anything known at the time. As the Cold War escalated, public tension grew alongside technological progress. Radar systems expanded, jet aircraft became faster, and the idea of intercontinental threats became part of everyday consciousness. Because of this, anything unusual in the sky was taken seriously, at least privately. Civilians were also becoming more aware of the possibility of advanced foreign aircraft, adding layers of anxiety to each mysterious sighting. Some historians argue that this geopolitical climate helped feed early UFO narratives, turning lights in the sky into potential omens of espionage, war, or extraterrestrial presence. And yet, despite the earthly fears surrounding these events, a significant number of witnesses insisted that what they saw moved in ways no human technology could replicate. It was during this vibrant and uncertain era that early reports of humanoid figures began to surface. These accounts were far less common than sightings of craft, but when they appeared, they left a deep impression. Witnesses described entities that were small, thin, and pale, descriptions that would later align closely with the modern image of the Greys. At the time, however, such reports were regarded with skepticism, often dismissed by officials as misinterpretations or fabrications. Still, the details were striking in their similarity. People who had never met, living in entirely different regions, described figures with large heads, smooth skin, and dark, prominent eyes. These early accounts planted the seeds of an emerging extraterrestrial archetype long before it became widely recognized. Media coverage played a complex role during this period. On one hand, newspapers sensationalized sightings, fueling fascination. On the other, mainstream outlets often used humor or skepticism to distance themselves from the subject. This mixture allowed the phenomenon to spread while also keeping it comfortably on the edges of credibility. Yet, for those who had personal experiences, there was nothing humorous about what they witnessed. For them, the post-war sky was not only a symbol of human progress, but a thin veil concealing something unknown, something watching. By the time the 1950s came to a close, the modern UFO era had fully taken shape. The combination of witness reports, government secrecy, and cultural speculation created a foundation upon which the mythos of the Greys would soon rise. The world had changed, and the collective gaze of humanity had shifted upward with newfound urgency. The stage was set for the next chapter, where encounters would move from distant lights in the sky to close, personal experiences that would forever alter the landscape of extraterrestrial lore. By the early 1960s, reports of UFO sightings began to evolve into something more intimate and unsettling: accounts of abductions. Unlike fleeting glimpses of lights or distant craft, these stories described personal encounters with beings who seemed to study or examine humans directly. Perhaps the most famous of these early cases was that of Betty and Barney Hill in 1961, whose experiences would later become a cornerstone of modern gray alien mythology. They recounted being taken aboard a spacecraft, subjected to medical examinations, and communicated with telepathically by figures matching the emerging description of the Greys: small, thin, with pale skin, large black eyes, and calm, almost hypnotic expressions. Their story, widely publicized, established a framework that many future reports would echo, creating a consistent visual and experiential template for the phenomenon. Abduction narratives often share remarkable similarities, even when witnesses are separated by geography, culture, or era. Victims describe feelings of paralysis, heightened awareness of their surroundings, and a sense of being observed without malice. Hypnotic regression became a method to recover memories that were often repressed or forgotten, though it also introduced the possibility of suggestion. Researchers approached these testimonies with caution, noting that while memory can be malleable, the consistency across accounts suggested patterns worth studying. Some psychologists argued that abductions might stem from sleep paralysis or other neurological states, while others pointed to shared archetypal imagery that seemed to transcend individual experience. Regardless of the interpretation, these reports captured the public imagination in a way that pure sightings never had. The details provided by abductees were strikingly specific. The Greys were described as emotionally neutral, focused entirely on observation or experimentation rather than interaction. They appeared to operate under a structured method, using tools and techniques unfamiliar to humans. Some witnesses reported being shown strange devices, glowing screens, or otherworldly symbols that hinted at intelligence and purpose. The environment aboard the craft was often described as quiet, sterile, and efficient, amplifying the sense of detachment and otherness. These features collectively contributed to a narrative in which the Greys were not malevolent in a conventional sense, but were incomprehensibly focused on their unknown agenda. Beyond the immediate sensations of the encounters, abduction accounts often carried profound psychological and emotional consequences. Witnesses frequently reported altered perceptions of time, vivid dreams, and heightened sensitivity to light and sound. Many struggled to reconcile their experiences with ordinary life, facing skepticism from friends, family, and authorities. Researchers observed that those who reported abductions often did so with reluctance, emphasizing the accuracy of their recollections despite fear of ridicule. In some cases, abduction narratives coincided with periods of intense personal stress, yet the experiences themselves appeared to follow consistent, intricate patterns that suggested more than mere coincidence. Cultural context played an essential role in shaping these stories. During the 1960s and 1970s, the Cold War and rapid technological advancement heightened collective anxiety about surveillance, control, and the unknown. Abduction narratives mirrored these fears, transforming alien visitors into figures of both curiosity and quiet tension. The Greys, in particular, came to embody this blend of scientific observation and emotional neutrality, providing a symbolic representation of human anxieties about autonomy, the body, and unseen forces. Yet despite these symbolic readings, many abductees insisted that the encounters felt real and objective, rooted in direct experience rather than metaphor. The emergence of the abduction phenomenon also led to a growing body of research and documentation. Scholars, journalists, and UFO enthusiasts began cataloging patterns, noting the recurring presence of the Greys, the medical-style examinations, and the telepathic communication described by multiple witnesses. Even skeptics acknowledged the significance of these repeated elements, as they suggested a phenomenon not easily dismissed as imagination alone. These detailed narratives laid the groundwork for decades of investigation, influencing public perception and shaping the visual and experiential identity of the Greys for generations to come. By the end of this era, the abduction narrative had become central to the story of the Greys. They were no longer distant lights or vague shadows in the night sky. They were intimate, methodical observers whose presence could be felt up close. Their defining characteristics, small stature, large black eyes, calm demeanor, and enigmatic purpose, had been etched into the collective imagination, providing a template for future encounters. It was a period in which the mysterious became personal, and the unknown entered homes, dreams, and consciousness in a way that would resonate for decades, quietly shaping the ongoing fascination with these otherworldly visitors. As reports of alien encounters and abductions grew during the 1960s and 1970s, the role of governments, particularly in the United States, became an unavoidable element in the narrative. Official responses were complex, often contradictory, and at times deliberately ambiguous. While publicly, agencies like the Air Force maintained that most sightings were misidentifications of conventional aircraft, weather phenomena, or celestial objects, internal investigations suggested a more cautious curiosity. Projects such as Sign, Grudge, and later Blue Book were tasked with cataloging reports, evaluating potential threats, and sometimes quietly documenting cases that defied explanation. These investigations, although classified in many aspects, demonstrated that the phenomenon was taken seriously at high levels, even if the public was largely kept in the dark. Declassified documents reveal a recurring tension between acknowledgement and dismissal. Analysts often noted that certain sightings involve craft with unconventional flight characteristics, sudden acceleration, silent hovering, and the ability to change direction rapidly, movements inconsistent with known aviation technology of the time. Radar operators and pilots occasionally corroborated visual observations, yet their reports were sometimes minimized or omitted from public summaries. Scholars studying these archives emphasize that the selective release of information created a persistent aura of mystery, feeding both fear and fascination. The government's approach, whether cautious or protective, inadvertently strengthened the public perception that something extraordinary was occurring above the earth. Eyewitness accounts from military and civilian personnel further complicated the official narrative. In several documented incidents, highly trained observers reported phenomena that could not be explained through conventional reasoning. These included unidentified lights maneuvering in impossible ways, as well as occasional humanoid figures near or around the craft. While skeptics argue that perception errors, stress, or psychological factors may account for these reports, the repeated consistency of descriptions over decades adds weight to the notion that at least some encounters were more than imagination. The presence of credible witnesses contributed to a slow but steady cultural acceptance that UFOs, and by extension, beings such as the Greys, were worthy of serious consideration. leaks, and alleged whistleblowers also played a role in shaping public understanding. Some individuals claimed insider knowledge of clandestine interactions with extraterrestrial entities or technology, though such assertions are often impossible to verify. Nevertheless, these stories resonated because they aligned with emerging narratives from civilian encounters. In many cases, the tension between secrecy and revelation created a paradox. The government's denial or silence heightened the plausibility of extraordinary claims. Historians and cultural theorists argue that this dynamic is a crucial component of the gray mythos, demonstrating how institutional behavior can amplify collective imagination while leaving room for genuine mystery. The media's interaction with official statements further complicated public perception. Journalists often oscillated between skepticism and sensationalism, reporting sightings and abduction claims, while also emphasizing government denials. Headlines about flying saucers or unexplained aerial phenomena became both entertainment and cautionary tales, reinforcing the sense that ordinary people might glimpse or even encounter something beyond human understanding. This interplay between media, witness testimony, and official ambiguity created a layered narrative in which the unknown hovered at the edges of everyday life, neither fully dismissed nor completely explained. Throughout this period, researchers and analysts emphasized the importance of discernment. While many sightings could be accounted for by natural or man-made causes, a persistent minority resisted explanation. Cases involving the Greys often fell within this category, combining eyewitness testimony, physical trace evidence, and psychological impact in ways that challenged conventional investigation. Scholars studying these encounters note that the systematic, calm, and observational characteristics of the Greys contrast sharply with the chaotic or sensationalized portrayals often found in fiction, suggesting a phenomenon that, if real, operates according to rules outside typical human expectation. In reflecting on the government's role, it becomes clear that secrecy and disclosure, skepticism and curiosity, have both shaped and sustained the ongoing fascination with the Greys. Official documents, leaks, and public statements provide pieces of a complex puzzle, but they rarely offer definitive answers. Instead, they frame the encounters as part of a larger narrative in which humans are observers of something profoundly unknown. The combination of institutional caution, credible witness accounts, and cultural fascination created fertile ground for the enduring mythology of the Greys, beings who, in many reports, seem to occupy both the physical and psychological space of human consciousness, quietly observing, examining, and influencing the stories we tell ourselves about the night sky. Across the decades, the Greys have moved far beyond the confines of eyewitness testimony and government reports. They have entered the collective imagination, becoming a central figure in global culture, influencing media, literature, art, and even popular psychology. Unlike fleeting reports of lights in the sky, the Greys carry a specific, recognizable identity, one that has been reinforced and refined through countless depictions in films, television series, comic books, and visual art. This cultural presence has not merely reflected human fascination with extraterrestrial life. It has actively shaped how people perceive encounters, dreams, and even the night sky itself. In this way, the Greys exist simultaneously as a reported phenomenon, a psychological archetype, and a pervasive symbol in modern storytelling. The spread of Grey imagery in popular media began subtly, often intersecting with broader anxieties of the 20th century. During the 1950s and 1960s, the height of the Cold War, fears about technological advancement, nuclear weapons, and surveillance permeated public consciousness. Movies like The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951, and Invaders from Mars, 1953, portrayed extraterrestrial visitors as observers, sometimes benign and sometimes threatening, but always possessing advanced technology and intelligence beyond human comprehension. These depictions mirrored real-world concerns. The idea that humanity was being watched, studied, or evaluated by forces far superior to its own. The visual design of these beings, smooth-skinned, large-headed, large-eyed, often diminutive, closely anticipates the modern conception of the Grey. Even if filmmakers were not explicitly modeling aliens, after eyewitness reports, cultural anxieties and archetypal imagery combined to create a template that aligned remarkably well with subsequent accounts. Television, comics, and pulp fiction further reinforced this imagery. Comic books and serialized science fiction stories frequently featured humanoid aliens with exaggerated features, designed to evoke curiosity and otherworldliness. Their slim, pale forms and disproportionately large heads served as visual shorthand for intelligence and detachment from human emotion. By the 1970s, this imagery had become nearly universal within UFO culture, so much so that even witnesses unfamiliar with one another's accounts often described remarkably similar beings. Psychologists and cultural anthropologists point to this as evidence of a feedback loop. Media portrayals informed collective expectations, and those expectations influenced both eyewitness reports and dream imagery. The Greys had become a shared symbol, a mirror of human fascination with intelligence beyond our own, and a canvas onto which imagination, fear, and wonder could all be projected. Artistic representation also played a subtle but powerful role in solidifying the Grey archetype. Illustrators for magazines, book covers, and later television specials emphasized certain features consistently. Large, reflective eyes, elongated craniums, pale or grayish skin, and small, fragile frames. Each depiction reinforced the others, slowly forming a consensus image in the cultural subconscious. Anthropologists studying the phenomenon note that repeated exposure to a single image across different contexts, media, artwork, documentary reenactments, can influence both memory and perception. This explains why even those who claim to have encountered the Greys independently often describe them with striking similarity. The archetype had already been laid down, subtly guiding interpretations of ambiguous experiences or dreams. The Greys' presence in dreams and personal symbolism is another layer of their cultural significance. Across cultures, individuals have reported nocturnal experiences or dreamlike encounters with beings that closely resemble the classic Grey image. In some cases, these experiences predate exposure to popular media, suggesting that the archetype may tap into a deeper, cross-cultural psychological pattern. Large eyes, minimal facial features, and diminutive bodies evoke a sense of observation and vulnerability simultaneously. This duality, being watched without threat, resonates with the very nature of bedtime reflection and dream states. In essence, the Greys have become figures not only of cultural fascination, but of personal introspection, operating in the liminal space between waking thought and sleep. The proliferation of Grey imagery also influenced UFO researchers, investigators, and enthusiasts. Abduction cases documented in the 1970s and 1980s frequently referenced the familiar traits: calm demeanor, telepathic communication, medical examinations, and observational neutrality. Investigators, consciously or unconsciously, compared witness descriptions to the widely circulated archetype, sometimes creating a subtle reinforcement effect. Academic studies of the phenomenon emphasize the importance of distinguishing between independent corroboration and cultural influence. While some researchers argue that media exposure alone cannot account for all observed consistencies, there is no denying that popular representations provided a common visual language, enabling individuals to articulate experiences that might otherwise have remained ineffable. The Greys also occupy a space in global mythology, even in regions with minimal direct exposure to Western media. Anthropologists have noted cases in South America, Asia, and parts of Europe where individuals reported pale, silent beings with large, dark eyes. While skeptics often attribute this to globalization of UFO culture or exposure to secondhand media, the consistency remains remarkable. In many ways, the Greys function as modern mythic figures, similar to ancient spirits or trickster entities. They exist in collective imagination while also grounding themselves in reported encounters, bridging the gap between folklore and contemporary experience. They are, in a sense, the mythology of the 20th and 21st centuries, symbols of humanity's enduring curiosity about the unknown. Media portrayals in recent decades have continued to refine the archetype, integrating advances in technology, computer graphics, and storytelling. Documentaries, series, and films increasingly emphasize the calm, observational qualities of the Greys rather than portraying them as overtly threatening. This shift aligns with broader cultural patterns. Audiences are more intrigued by subtle, psychological mysteries than by sensationalized alien invasions. The Greys image has also expanded into merchandise, art, and virtual reality experiences, demonstrating how thoroughly they have embedded themselves into the fabric of popular culture. They are simultaneously a psychological symbol, a visual icon, and a narrative device, a being that exists in reports, media, and imagination in multiple dimensions at once. The cultural pervasiveness of the Greys affects not only public perception, but also scientific and investigative approaches. Pilots, astronomers, and researchers report encounters with beings that match popular depictions, leading to debates about perception, memory, and the influence of collective imagery. Even seasoned skeptics recognize that the consistency of certain features, slender bodies, large eyes, pale skin, and calm demeanor, cannot be entirely dismissed as coincidence. Cultural reinforcement, media exposure, and archetypal resonance all interact, creating a complex feedback loop that shapes how encounters are interpreted and remembered. In the end, the Greys' influence on global culture is profound and multifaceted. They are not merely the product of imagination, nor are they entirely reducible to media reinforcement. They are a convergence of history, psychology, folklore, and modern storytelling. They serve as both a mirror and a guide, reflecting humanity's deepest curiosities and fears while inviting us to explore the unknown. Their calm, observational presence, emotionally neutral yet deeply compelling, offers a unique blend of fascination and reflection. In the quiet moments before sleep, when imagination and consciousness meet, the Greys occupy a liminal space that is both comforting and mysterious, reminding us that the unknown is not always frightening, but often quietly profound. As a cultural phenomenon, the Greys continue to evolve, adapting to new generations while maintaining the core traits that make them instantly recognizable. They are symbols of intelligence, mystery, and observation. They are archetypes of the unseen. They are whispers of the cosmos folded into human imagination. In every depiction, every story, and every dream, the Greys inhabit a space where reality, symbolism, and curiosity coexist, a space that is both universal and deeply personal. Their enduring presence in global culture ensures that, whether as reported visitors, dreamlike figures, or mythic icons, they will continue to inspire reflection, wonder, and a gentle, contemplative engagement with the mysteries that stretch far beyond our familiar world. The modern era of UFO sightings and alien encounters has shifted into a realm where technology, documentation, and credibility converge, offering a unique perspective on the phenomenon of the Greys. Unlike the early post-war sightings, which often relied on anecdotal reports, the 21st century has brought a new level of scrutiny, analysis, and verification. Pilots, military personnel, and trained observers now report anomalies that are recorded with radar, infrared cameras, and high-resolution video, giving researchers more data to examine. The presence of these credible witnesses, combined with increasingly sophisticated detection equipment, has elevated the discussion from fringe speculation to a matter of serious inquiry. This has not eliminated skepticism, of course, but it has created a landscape in which the unexplained commands attention from both the public and governmental institutions. Military encounters, in particular, have drawn attention due to the precision and professionalism of the observers involved. Several cases have been reported by airline pilots and naval personnel, describing objects that demonstrate maneuverability far beyond conventional aircraft. These objects have been observed moving at incredible speeds, performing rapid direction changes, and remaining perfectly stable in ways that contradict the known principles of aerodynamics. Some witnesses report seeing figures or shapes near or inside the craft, small, humanoid beings with large heads and prominent eyes, echoing the classical description of the Greys. These accounts are often accompanied by radar tracking or corroborative instrumentation, adding a layer of credibility that civilian sightings alone rarely achieve. Researchers analyzing these reports stress that the data often points to a phenomenon that cannot be easily explained by conventional physics, atmospheric effects, or human error. Civilian observers, too, contribute to the modern body of evidence, often documenting encounters with high-quality cameras or recording devices. While some reports remain ambiguous, there are numerous instances where multiple independent witnesses have captured the same event, creating cross-verified accounts that challenge simple dismissal. Civilian reports also include instances of close encounters, abductions, and unusual interactions, frequently aligning with previously established patterns of gray behavior, silent observation, telepathic or nonverbal communication, and the impression of purposeful examination. For those who study these occurrences, the consistency across decades, cultures, and types of observers reinforces the argument that there is a recurring phenomenon demanding serious consideration. The release of declassified documents by governmental agencies has further shaped modern understanding. The U.S. Department of Defense's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena (UAP Task Force), along with subsequent investigations by Congress, has confirmed the existence of objects performing maneuvers beyond conventional human technology. While these reports avoid directly referencing extraterrestrial life, they acknowledge the presence of phenomena that remain unexplained despite rigorous analysis. Experts note that these documents lend legitimacy to decades of eyewitness accounts, including those involving gray-like figures. By bridging the gap between anecdotal experience and official recognition, modern investigations create a more grounded framework for understanding, inviting both skepticism and curiosity to coexist. One notable aspect of contemporary sightings is the sophistication and subtlety of reported gray behavior. In contrast to the dramatic or overtly frightening narratives sometimes portrayed in media, modern encounters often describe beings that are quiet, methodical, and observational. They appear to monitor without interference, sometimes engaging with technology or the environment in ways that suggest intelligence and purpose. Witnesses report being aware of their presence without experiencing immediate harm, a feature that aligns with earlier abduction narratives yet maintains a calm, controlled tone. Some researchers interpret this as a deliberate pattern. If these beings exist and are observing, their goal may be study rather than aggression. This interpretation underscores the enduring tension in gray encounters between awe, unease, and fascination. Advances in technology have also introduced the possibility of analyzing physiological and psychological responses to encounters in ways that were impossible in earlier decades. Sleep studies, neurological scans, and controlled experiments on perception have allowed scientists to examine phenomena such as sleep paralysis, memory formation, and altered states of consciousness, which can sometimes explain aspects of gray encounters. Yet even when psychological explanations are applied, there remains a portion of experiences that resist conventional categorization. Instruments record anomalies, radar tracks unexplained objects, and witnesses maintain consistency in physical and behavioral descriptions. This intersection of human observation and objective measurement creates a compelling puzzle. What is being perceived, and how does it relate to the physical reality of the world? Some modern researchers have also explored environmental and contextual factors surrounding encounters. Patterns emerge regarding geography, altitude, and timing. Many sightings occur in regions with low light pollution, at night or during twilight, and often involve witnesses who are alone or in small groups. The phenomenon seems to manifest in subtle, controlled ways rather than in chaotic or indiscriminate events. Some studies suggest that encounters may be more likely when individuals are in heightened states of awareness or emotional receptivity, such as during meditation, sleep, or periods of deep contemplation. The cumulative effect of these observations points toward a phenomenon that is neither random nor entirely explainable, lending weight to the idea of an intentional presence. Despite these advances, skepticism remains an integral part of modern investigation. Scientists, psychologists, and skeptics emphasize the need for rigorous controls, careful documentation, and peer-reviewed analysis. Misinterpretations of drones, aircraft, atmospheric anomalies, and optical illusions can account for some encounters, and cognitive biases may amplify perception. Nevertheless, the persistence of certain patterns, Gray's appearance, behavior, and methodical observation across decades and thousands of reports defies easy explanation. This tension between empirical rigor and unexplained consistency forms the heart of contemporary Gray studies, demanding an approach that balances critical thinking with open-minded inquiry. Technological and cultural factors have also shaped how encounters are shared and interpreted. The Internet allows witnesses to connect across continents, compare experiences, and create digital archives of encounters. Social media, forums, and citizen science initiatives have democratized reporting, leading to greater transparency and cross-validation of sightings. At the same time, the global exchange of imagery and stories has amplified collective expectation, potentially influencing new reports. Researchers must navigate this complex interplay, separating genuine anomalies from cultural reinforcement while remaining attentive to patterns that emerge across independent accounts. In modern investigations, the role of narrative and perception is inseparable from the data itself. The calm, observing presence of the Greys, central to many abduction reports, serves as a bridge between the physical and psychological dimensions of encounters. Witnesses describe feelings of awe, focus, and subtle fear, yet rarely outright terror, highlighting a consistent emotional pattern. The phenomenon encourages reflection on humanity's place in the universe, the limits of perception, and the possibility of intelligence beyond Earth. In this way, the Greys function not only as figures of mystery, but as catalysts for contemplation, drawing attention to questions that are both external and deeply internal. Ultimately, modern sightings and high-credibility accounts expand our understanding of the Greys while maintaining the tension between certainty and mystery. The combination of trained observers, technological documentation, and corroborative reporting has elevated the discourse, situating the phenomenon within a realm of serious inquiry. At the same time, the elusive nature of these encounters preserves the sense of wonder that has defined the Greys for decades. Listeners are invited to consider that, whether fully physical, partially psychological, or operating according to principles yet unknown, the Greys remain a consistent and compelling presence in the contemporary landscape of UFO phenomena. They are quiet observers, methodical and precise, whose enduring mystery challenges humanity to explore both the outer limits of the cosmos and the inner reaches of perception and imagination. Across the vast expanse of decades-long reports and accounts, one of the most compelling and enduring questions surrounding the Greys is deceptively simple. What are they doing here? Unlike mythical monsters that attack or haunt, or folklore spirits that interfere sporadically with human lives, the Greys are consistently described as calm, methodical, and observant. Whether through abduction narratives, high-credibility sightings, or cultural representations, the pattern is the same. They watch, they study, and they engage with humans in ways that suggest purpose, intelligence, and restraint. Understanding their motives is no straightforward task, and it is precisely this ambiguity that has made the phenomenon both fascinating and disquieting for researchers, witnesses, and the wider public. One prevailing interpretation among scientists and ufologists is that the Greys are conducting a form of research similar to the way humans study other species. Abduction accounts frequently describe what seem to be medical examinations, observations of anatomy, genetic sampling, and even telepathic questioning. The beings appear dispassionate, precise, and unemotional, emphasizing a scientific approach rather than emotional interaction. This has led some researchers to speculate that their interest in humans is biological or evolutionary in nature. They may be observing developmental patterns, health markers, or genetic information to understand human physiology, reproduction, or behavior. In this framework, the Greys function as objective scientists, indifferent to human fear or emotion, yet deeply engaged in the collection and analysis of information. Expanding upon this idea, some theorists propose that the Greys may have a longer-term agenda involving the stewardship or influence of human evolution. Reports of abductions often involve repeated encounters with the same individuals, suggesting ongoing monitoring rather than one-time experiments. Certain narratives include references to hybridization programs, in which human and gray genetic material is combined. While such claims remain controversial and scientifically unverified, they align with the recurring theme of careful, intentional observation. The possibility that they are engaged in a slow, methodical plan, whether to study, preserve, or modify human development, offers a framework for understanding why their interactions are so subtle, often leaving witnesses with curiosity, unease, or awe, rather than outright terror. A related line of thought suggests that the Gray's presence reflects a broader interstellar or interdimensional oversight. In this scenario, they are not simply observing a single species, but participating in a network of monitoring across multiple worlds or realities. Advocates of this perspective often point to the precision, consistency, and calm demeanor reported in encounters as evidence of advanced intelligence and discipline. In many cases, the beings appear to operate according to rules or constraints beyond human comprehension, appearing only under certain conditions and interacting in carefully controlled ways. Their silence, emotional neutrality, and avoidance of direct confrontation suggest an ethic of observation rather than interference, as though they are bound by protocols that dictate the scope of their engagement with humanity. Psychologists, meanwhile, offer a complementary perspective that frames the Gray's perceived motives as reflective of human cognition and symbolism. From this viewpoint, the beings function as mirrors of our own curiosity, fear, and longing for knowledge. Their calm, detached presence may be interpreted as a projection of our collective desire to understand what lies beyond human perception. The large eyes and understated expression tap into deep-seated neural patterns, evoking both vulnerability and intelligence in ways that resonate with subconscious recognition. In essence, the Grays embody the archetype of the observer, silent, patient, and unknowable, a figure that allows humans to explore questions about morality, consciousness, and existence itself. Even if the encounters are not physical in the conventional sense, their impact is profound, stimulating reflection and inquiry into the limits of human awareness. Historical and cultural interpretations add further nuance to the discussion of motives. In the post-war and Cold War periods, when sightings and abduction reports intensified, the Gray's behavior can be read as a symbolic response to human anxieties about technology, control, and surveillance. Their methodical, scientific approach mirrors societal fears about invasive monitoring, loss of privacy, and mechanized authority. Simultaneously, their calm detachment and lack of overt aggression reflect an ideal of neutral observation, emphasizing objectivity over interference. In this way, the Grays may represent both external and internal forces, unknown beings in the cosmos, and a reflection of humanity's own relationship with power, technology, and morality. Some theorists and spiritual thinkers explore an additional dimension, suggesting that the Grays' motives may be less biological or political and more philosophical or pedagogical. In certain abduction narratives, witnesses report telepathic communication or subtle imparting of knowledge, often in a way that emphasizes awareness, introspection, or moral reflection. While the content is rarely direct or prescriptive, it often inspires a heightened consciousness of one's surroundings, a curiosity about the universe, or a re-evaluation of personal and societal priorities. In this interpretation, the Grays function not merely as scientists or monitors, but as guides, catalysts, or even teachers, encouraging humanity to expand its understanding without imposing overt control. This aligns with the consistent emotional neutrality of their interactions. They do not coerce or dictate, but create conditions for observation and reflection. Technological explanations also intersect with discussions of motive. The precision and consistency observed in reports suggest a society or consciousness, highly advanced, capable of achieving objectives with minimal energy expenditure and maximum efficiency. Their interest in humans could be logistical, related to study or monitoring, but it might also encompass broader goals, such as interspecies communication, data collection, or the safeguarding of ecosystems across worlds. The recurring theme of observation without confrontation implies that the Grays operate with long-term strategies, valuing subtlety over direct interference and patience over immediate results. In this sense, their motives, while unknowable in detail, are coherent with what might be expected from a species operating at a technological and cognitive level far beyond human experience. It is also worth considering that the Greys' motives may not be singular or static. They may simultaneously serve multiple purposes: biological research, monitoring, philosophical observation, and even symbolic reflection for humanity. Their repeated patterns, calm demeanor, and selective engagement suggest a deliberate methodology, yet one that is flexible enough to accommodate a variety of outcomes. Just as human scientists adjust methods to different experiments or ethical considerations, the Greys may adjust their behavior depending on context, witness, or environmental variables. This multiplicity of potential motives adds richness to the narrative, creating a space where wonder and speculation coexist without demanding certainty. In contemplating the possible motives of the Greys, one returns to the interplay between mystery and insight that has defined these encounters for decades. Whether their interest in humanity is scientific, philosophical, symbolic, or a combination of all three, their presence invites reflection. They compel us to ask not only who or what they are, but why consciousness, intelligence, and observation matter in a universe that is vast and largely unknown. By examining their behavior, patterns, and interactions, humanity gains a subtle mirror, an opportunity to consider its own evolution, ethics, and place in the cosmos. Ultimately, the Greys remain enigmatic because their motives transcend human conventions of purpose and intent. They do not engage in aggression or overt domination, yet they leave profound impressions on those who encounter them. Their actions, calm, consistent, and methodical, invite contemplation rather than fear, curiosity rather than certainty. They may be observers, researchers, guides, or symbols, perhaps all of these at once. For those who study, witness, or imagine them, the Greys exemplify the delicate balance between the known and the unknown, the observable and the ineffable, reminding humanity that some mysteries are not problems to solve, but experiences to reflect upon. In this quiet contemplation, one begins to understand that the true motive of the Greys may not be entirely separable from the human experience itself. By observing, they challenge our understanding. By interacting subtly, they inspire introspection. By remaining largely inscrutable, they remind us of the limits of perception. Their purpose, if it exists, is measured not in immediate consequence, but in enduring invitation to wonder, to question, and to seek knowledge beyond the familiar. In this way, the Greys occupy a space both external and internal, a presence in the cosmos and a mirror within consciousness, encouraging humanity to explore the boundary between reality and possibility, mystery and understanding, all while maintaining a calm, patient vigilance that has defined their presence across decades of encounters. The night has always carried a certain stillness, a quiet vastness that encourages reflection and invites the imagination to wander beyond the boundaries of what is known. In this calm, liminal space between wakefulness and sleep, humanity has long looked skyward, wondering what might exist in the infinite expanse above. The Greys, in all their quiet, enigmatic presence, have become one of the most enduring symbols of that cosmic curiosity. They are not creatures of loud drama or immediate threat. They do not roar, attack, or chase. Instead, they observe, they study, and they quietly imprint themselves onto the imagination of those who encounter them. Their story, stretching across decades of sightings, abduction narratives, cultural representations, and scholarly exploration, invites a journey that is both inward and outward, a journey of the mind, the senses, and the imagination, culminating in a profound appreciation for the mystery that surrounds us. As we consider the Greys, it is worth reflecting on how deeply intertwined they are with human history, culture, and psychology. From ancient myths of silent watchers to the imaginative creations of early science fiction, the forms we recognize today have roots that extend far beyond the 20th century. They are the convergence of archetypal imagery, collective subconscious patterns, and the human fascination with intelligence that exists beyond our own. In their large, black, almond-shaped eyes, observers glimpse both the unknown and a mirror of human curiosity. The calm, methodical nature often reported by witnesses, whether during fleeting glimpses of a craft or intense personal encounters, evokes not fear in the traditional sense, but a profound awareness of something beyond ordinary comprehension. These qualities have made the Greys uniquely suitable for a space of contemplation, reflection, and even quiet awe, particularly in the intimate hours of the night. Modern encounters, verified reports from pilots, military personnel, and civilians with reliable observations, add a layer of credibility that is rare in the study of unidentified phenomena. When combined with declassified videos, radar records, and systematic documentation by civilian researchers, a compelling pattern emerges. The Greys are often associated with craft capable of remarkable flight dynamics. Sudden acceleration, near-instantaneous changes in direction, hovering without sound, and movement that seems to defy known laws of physics. These observations, when taken seriously by trained professionals, suggest that there may be a level of technological or cognitive sophistication at play that is far beyond human development. Whether these beings are biological, interdimensional, or symbolic constructs of consciousness, their presence in human experience continues to challenge assumptions about reality, perception, and the limits of understanding. Yet what makes the Greys truly remarkable is not simply their form or the extraordinary abilities of their associated craft. It is their effect on the human psyche, both individually and collectively. Abduction narratives often describe not only physical interactions, but also emotional and cognitive ones. Witnesses report being observed, studied, and even communicated with in ways that transcend speech. Many describe telepathic impressions, vivid symbolic imagery, and subtle manipulations of perception that leave a lasting imprint on memory. Scholars have noted that these encounters, regardless of their objective reality, reveal a consistent structure: observation, examination, and interaction conducted with emotional neutrality. The beings are neither cruel nor overtly benevolent. They are inscrutable, calm, and deliberate, a quality that leaves humans with a lingering sense of wonder and contemplation rather than immediate fear. The cultural impact of the Greys has amplified their significance, embedding them deeply into collective consciousness. Through films, literature, comic books, documentaries, and online media, their image has become universally recognizable. Large eyes, slender bodies, and quiet, analytical presence recur across continents and cultures, suggesting either a shared archetypal resonance or a synchronization of imagination across societies. Psychologists and anthropologists have long debated the implications. Are these depictions shaping the experiences themselves, or do they reflect an underlying pattern in human cognition that naturally manifests in this form? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between, a dynamic interplay of expectation, subconscious symbolism, and actual phenomena that continue to resist simple explanation. The symbolism of the Greys is layered and profound. On one level, they represent the unknown, the universe beyond human comprehension, intelligence that operates on principles we cannot yet grasp. On another, they reflect human concerns and anxieties, surveillance, control, and technological advancement. They act as mirrors, projecting both our curiosity and our unease back onto us. Yet, despite the unsettling aspects of being observed, there is also a sense of calm in their detachment. They do not intervene with violence or alarm. They simply exist as quiet witnesses. In this duality, simultaneously alien and familiar, distant and intimately connected, they invite contemplation. They encourage reflection on what it means to be human, what it means to observe and be observed, and what it might mean to encounter intelligence that operates according to an entirely different set of principles. In a way, the Greys embody a unique intersection between mystery, science, and spirituality. Whether they are biological entities from distant worlds, interdimensional travelers, projections of human consciousness, or symbolic archetypes, they compel a sense of humility. They remind us of the limits of human perception, the gaps in our understanding of the cosmos, and the boundless potential for discovery. The persistent consistency of encounters over decades, across cultures, and in both anecdotal and verifiable contexts suggests a phenomenon that is at once elusive and deeply influential. Their presence in our narratives, dreams, and shared imagination illustrates the human desire to explore, to understand, and to reach beyond the familiar. For those who lie awake at night, contemplating these beings, there is a subtle invitation to embrace uncertainty with curiosity rather than fear. The quiet presence of the Greys offers a paradoxical comfort. They are reminders that the universe is vast, that mystery remains, and that wonder can coexist with calm. In the silence of the night, their enigmatic gaze encourages reflection on the nature of existence, consciousness, and the unseen forces that may quietly shape the human experience. In this space, the unknown becomes a companion rather than a threat, and the mind is free to wander, explore, and imagine without urgency or alarm. As this journey of thought draws to a close, it is worth recognizing the unique role the Greys play in human culture and consciousness. They bridge history and modernity, myth and science, psychology and philosophy. They exist simultaneously in reports of encounters, in the imagination of artists and writers, and in the collective subconscious that threads through dreams and stories. They remind us that some questions may remain unanswered, yet the pursuit of understanding, whether through observation, research, or quiet contemplation, is itself a meaningful experience. Their calm, deliberate presence models a form of intelligence and observation that is both alien and profoundly instructive, inviting humans to consider life, consciousness, and the universe in ways that extend beyond immediate comprehension. As the night deepens and the mind begins to soften into rest, the mystery of the Greys settles gently around the imagination. They are quiet observers, enigmatic yet non-threatening, compelling yet calm, a presence that exists at the intersection of curiosity and contemplation. Whether real, symbolic, or a combination of both, they occupy a space in the human experience that transcends explanation. In their stillness, they offer an opportunity for reflection, for wonder, and for the peaceful acceptance of the unknown. As sleep draws near, one can rest in the knowledge that the universe holds countless mysteries, and that the Greys, silent, observant, and ever enigmatic, remain a part of the vast, unfolding story of what lies beyond our world, inviting both curiosity and calm in equal measure.